Welcome to the Telling of Story podcast. I'm your host, storyteller Jules, and along with my guests, it's my endeavour to explore the art and science of storytelling to attract, engage, and retain a business audience, and to unpack why it works for some and not for the many that try. Listen in as Daniel talks about self-awareness as the first step.
So the first step of healing, or the first stage, which we've already talked about, is becoming aware. We need to become aware of those small and limited thought patterns, those emotions that do not feel good. We need to become aware of them, first of all. As long as we're running in a hamster wheel, just keeping ourselves busy, we're not going to be able to do anything about whatever thought forms, beliefs, perceptions that we're holding on to.
In this episode, I have the pleasure of talking with Daniel Roqueo. Daniel is a spiritual teacher. Since 2017, he has been touching, moving, and serving hundreds of thousands of individuals in transforming their lives. Through the grace of Spirit, Daniel continues to touch and serve individuals from all around the world as they move along the path to freedom, waking up and transforming their lives, so that they may set themselves free from fear, worry, doubt, a sense of lack, scarcity, and separation from a sense of not being enough, so that they may set themselves free to be in ever-expanding love, joy, peace, harmony, wholeness, abundance, and beauty. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jules. I'm very happy to be here.
Daniel, in your bio, you talk about moving along the path to freedom. Can you just explain to me what that is and what that involves?
Absolutely. As we come into this world as little babies, we're completely free. We're completely uninhibited. We're not caught up by fears about what others may think or what they may say to us or what they may do to us, but we're just fully here and now. As we grow up, we learn these stories about how we need to be in a certain way. We perhaps learn the story that we're not good enough, that if we don't behave in a particular way, we're not going to get the love that we desire. We're not going to be appreciated. We're not going to be acknowledged. We're not going to be seen. We're not going to be heard. So we add on to ourselves all these limitations. And so the path to freedom is really about discovering these limitations. It is about, as the name implies, it is about setting ourselves free to be in joy, in harmony, in wholeness, regardless of what's going on around us. Because many of us, we sort of turn our attention and we give the conditions and circumstances the power to dictate how we feel, the thought patterns or the thought trains of thought that go on in our minds. We give the external world permission to do that. So when something good happens, we find ourselves in a high vibration. We find ourselves in joy. We find ourselves in gratitude. When something bad happens, we find ourselves complaining, bemoaning, regurgitating in fear and worry and doubt. And we're so overly concerned with what others are thinking about us, their judgments, their opinions about us. So the path to freedom it's an inward journey. It's not at all about the external conditions. It's not at all about the external circumstances, but it is all about us becoming aware of the thought patterns, the habitual trains of thoughts, the judgments, the opinions, the fears, the worries, the doubts, the stories that we tell ourselves, the beliefs that we hold on to, that we cling to, becoming aware of these so that we may release and let them go. Allowing ourselves to shine the light that we are, allowing ourselves to be the beautiful emanations of the one mind, the spirit, call it whatever we want to call it, that we are here to be. Sort of like nature. Nothing in nature cares about what another aspect of nature thinks of it. I mean, a rose doesn't care how many petals it's got, or the nuances, or the colors, or its height, or anything like that. It's just being in absolute grace and radiance and rejoice over being. So that is, in short, what the path to freedom is.
It's a beautiful tale that you tell, and I can't help but think that it's human instinct to do these things, right? That we naturally start to overthink things and tell stories and have certain beliefs. Well, this might be an interesting question and maybe not answerable necessarily, but who is to blame for the stories that we tell ourselves?
All right. So when it comes to reasons, there are obviously different layers of reasons. We can dig into our past saying that, oh, it's because our parents and because of what they did or because what they did not do. It's because of that incident. It's because of that event. Ultimately, and we can go further, we can dig further and say that it's because of their parents and because of their parents. And we can go down the line of generations trying to find the cause, trying to find the reason for why I am this way now or why we are this way now. But ultimately, if we want the freedom to emerge, we need to realize that it is us. And I don't like the word blame because it sort of points to something being in error. It kind of points to us being flawed or at fault or anything like that. But that's a judgment that gives rise to necessary suffering. So I try to stay away from the word blame. But the reason why we are behaving in any way, in any moment, is because we are at that level of awareness. So if we want to use the word blame, the only thing there ever is to blame is our ignorance, our unawareness of that we do have the ability to choose for ourselves. We do have the ability to stand firm in our own authority. We do have the ability to take our power back, not give it away to external conditions, not give it away to our parents or whatever. When we become aware that actually I do in every single moment, I have a choice. I get to choose to lean into the complaining, the bemoaning, feeling the victim, telling myself stories about how it is such a shame that these people are behaving this way and what they are doing is causing me. They are the reason why I'm feeling this way. When we become aware of these stories, the ignorance dissolves, the unawareness dissolves. And what emerges is the awareness that, hey, actually, I am free to stand in joy. I am free to, the mind does what the mind does, right? So when things happen outside of us, it is the nature of the mind to sort of move into thought patterns and thought forms. Us becoming aware that allows us to not judge ourselves when the mind creeps into time. A lot of us are caught up either the present or the past or the future. But when we come back to the nowness this moment, that's when the freedom begins to emerge. So to answer your question in another way is by saying that what is to blame is our tendency to blame others, our tendency to blame external conditions, circumstances. That is the reason for our suffering. It's not what they do. It's not what is happening, but it is our thoughts about it. It is our judgments about it, our perceptions about it. That is what is giving rise to suffering. That is what is giving rise to the sense of not feeling or being enough or not having enough or whatever the case may be.
I love the word awareness, and it's a word that has sort of crept up to me in the last couple of years in a couple of different formats. One is self-awareness, which is quite a bit of what you've just spoken about there, is being aware of the thoughts and being aware of the judgments and how it's manifesting for you in particular and what you're doing with that thought. And being aware of it is kind of like the first step to a path of change. To be aware of something then allows you or gives you that choice to then move to another state or another place in whether it be in a mindset context or a thinking context or whatever that context may be. And the flip version of that is also the ability to be aware of other people's reactions, other people's thought processes and what's going on in their worlds, and being able to dutifully react to a situation because of that full awareness, or at least perceived awareness. You may not know the whole story of what's going on with somebody else, but the more you understand where another person's position may be coming from, then allows you to choose on how you interact with that person, whether you interact with them at all, whether you move away from them. But in the context of business, if I can drag it back to a business context, it's incredibly important to be both self-aware of how you're interacting and reacting in situations around your colleagues, around your partners, around your clients. But equally, there's a massive need for awareness of what's going on in your client's environment and your colleague's environment and in your business environment, right? So to me, the word awareness is incredibly powerful. What are your thoughts when it comes to, I guess, developing self-awareness? Because to me, awareness or self-awareness in particular is a little bit like common sense. It's not common, even though it's in the word. Common sense I don't find is common. And to me, it's very similar in the awareness context. Everyone sort of says they're aware or self-aware, but are they truly? Is it actually a full awareness? What are your thoughts around, particularly around, I guess, understanding where you are in that awareness cycle and how to develop that muscle? Because to me, it's a skill. I believe it's a skill, and correct me if you don't think the same way, but I think it's a skill that you can work on and improve and get better at. What are your thoughts around that in particular?
First of all, I usually refer to awareness as a muscle. You kind of spoke into it, that it is something that we all have it. It's inherent within every single one of us, but it is a muscle that we need to become aware that we have, that we can strengthen, that we can build, that we can cultivate so that it grows stronger and stronger. And the stronger it gets, the more aware we become. So mindfulness, this whole mindfulness, being mindful in the now moment, being here and now. As for how, and I completely agree with you, Jules, when you say that it is not that common. There's a lot of people, because we need to realize there's a difference between knowing about something and actually knowing something, embodying that which you know, integrating that which you know into your life. So living from that. There's a lot of people that are fully able to parrot and quote from books and seminars and all of that. But having knowledge about something does squat unless we choose to really build that knowledge into who we are and move from that knowledge. So there's a lot of people that are semi-aware. They are aware that there's a concept of awareness. As for how to cultivate and build this awareness, pretty much it comes down to willingness, to being willing to do the work, because it is work. If we want to improve our physical strength or our physical health, we need to do the work to allow for that to happen. If I want to get in shape, sitting on the couch eating potato chips, it's not going to do much, right? But I actually need to move into the actions that promote the increasing health. And this is the same. So we need willingness and we need discipline. And discipline simply means that we do what we need to do. We do what we feel that we need to do, even when we don't feel like it. So coming back to awareness being like a muscle, we need to practice being still, observing our thoughts, witnessing our thoughts. What is going on in our minds? What am I thinking now? What am I doing now? And a beautiful way to sort of gauge where we are in consciousness is to look at the world as we perceive it and how people are responding to us. Like there are a lot of people that find themselves in conflict. Like they go to fill up the car and they end up having an argument with some random individual that is just there at the gas station. Or in line, they perhaps begin to tell themselves stories about how long that this is taking too long. And oh my God, that individual in front of me, she's got so many items in her basket or in her cart or whatever. So the more drama we experience in life, I would say that's a testimony to our level of awareness. The less drama we experience in life, the less conflict we experience in life, that too is a testament to our level of awareness. And the more aware we become, the more peace we experience, the more peace we know, the more peace we radiate, the more peace we emanate, and love and compassion and kindness. So taking a look at our lives, and this is all about us being very honest with ourselves. Taking a look at our lives and seeing, what is my life like? What is the world that I'm seeing? Am I seeing conflict everywhere? Am I seeing lack and scarcity everywhere? Am I seeing whatever? Or am I seeing love, compassion? Am I seeing possibilities? Am I seeing opportunities everywhere? That sort of tells us where we are in consciousness.
Is there a little bit of, I guess, fear of the unknown in that process? Like if you stop and think a little bit too deeply, you might find something you don't like.
Absolutely. Which is one of the main reasons why so many individuals are going to such lengths trying to keep themselves busy. Social media, TV, newspapers, having people all around, not ever being, that's not fair. Very rarely being in silence, very rarely being still. Because when we are still, when we are sitting alone in a space, no one here, no one around us, no one here, 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 no one here no external distractions, a lot of things come up. Those judgments, those fears, that sense of this is not comfortable. This is icky. Ugh, I don't like this.
So is it a little bit like, I guess, as we spoke about getting fit, for example, like, is it a little bit like that where you have to go through the painful part before you get to those endorphins, before the endorphins kick in, right? When you're first learning how to run around the block, for example, if you get to the corner and you're puffing and you're wheezing and you're uncomfortable, it's not great. A runner will say there's a point in time where you get to this, you feel like you're almost somewhat floating as you're running. You get to I guess, athletic stage where it actually becomes a lot easier. Is it a little bit like that, where you've got to go through the painful parts in order to get to the endorphins at the end and the good stuff at the end?
Absolutely. I love that analogy about the athlete, because that's exactly what this is. What I call healing, and first of all, I want to define what I mean by healing. Healing is not us fixing anything that is broken. It is not us mending anything in ourselves or within ourselves. But healing, the way I define it, is merely the releasing and letting go of that which is covering up the peace, the love, the joy, the harmony, the abundance, the creativity, the intelligence that we all are. So the first step of healing, or the first stage, which we've already talked about, is becoming aware. We need to become aware of those small and limited thought patterns, those emotions that do not feel good. We need to become aware of them, first of all. As long as we're running in a hamster wheel, just trying to, or just keeping ourselves busy, we're not going to be able to do anything about whatever thought forms, beliefs, perceptions that we're holding on to. But we need to become aware of them first. So that's the first stage. The second stage is to witness and observe them, to just be with them. And this is the hard part, to be with that intense fear that perhaps has your belly in knots, that perhaps gives rise to nauseating sensation within yourself, that intense fear of failure, fear of what the future will bring, fear of, as we've talked about before, a sense of not being enough. So we need to witness and observe that. The third stage is us embracing and allow it. Embracing and allow it, which simply means that we release our judgment about it. We release our opinions about it, because that's very often we become aware of a thought form or a judgment that we're holding about ourselves or about someone else or something else. And we immediately jump into, oh, this is wrong. I'm not supposed to feel, I shouldn't think this. I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't be this way. But as long as we are in resistance, as long as we are trying to deny or cover up or saying that this is wrong, the healing cannot happen. We're just engaging in it. We're just giving it our attention so that it may magnify and amplify itself and sustain itself. So the third stage is embracing and allowing that which is. And then from that space of witnessing and observing, being with it, from that space of embracing and allowing it to be what it is, then we get to turn our attention away, building new neural pathways, building new structures in our minds. But yes, there is like that. There's the beautiful saying that goes, we need to go through the gory to get to the glory, which means that there's a lot of turbulence. There's a lot of comfortability that we need to move through in this space of awareness. And everything that needs to come up to the surface will come up to the surface. So there's a lot of things that need to be released and let go. There's a lot of spaces that we move through that are not at all enjoyable in that sense.
To me, this sounds like a practice rather than a one-off event. This is definitely something that you would start slowly and sort of build upon, like build that muscle memory. But I imagine it's quite cyclic. So you would go through perhaps 1, 2, and 3, and then you might slip back into 1 or 2, and then you move forward to 3 or 4, and then you go back, and new things would pop up, and different experiences will come to the fore, and all of those things. So to me, it sounds like a practice. Is this something I need to do, or people would need to do once a month, once a week, every day, 3 times a day? What kind of practice does it take, or does it depend on what your self-awareness is and how much you are seeing the bad things in the world and the chaos versus the joy and the love?
So there's no recipe for how to move through this or how to make it happen. But as we move along this path to freedom. We move from one level to the next. And I can't quite remember where I started off because it's been so long. But every single day now, I have a space where I move into this self introspection. Every single day now, I sit in meditation, completely still, completely silent, just being, witnessing, and observing. When things come up, when I become aware of having a judgment, being caught up, being hijacked by thought forms, limitations, whatever the case may be, that is a call to practice. Absolutely. This is an ever expanding way of life where we more and more, the more aware we become, the more we realize that we need to become even more aware, right? So it is that spiral or the peeling of the onion, as another beautiful analogy is. Let's say a very common fear is the fear of not having enough money, the fear of running out of money. So when we begin to work with that, when we begin to work with the perception of lack and scarcity, we move from one level and we do some releasing and letting go around that. And then perhaps our lives flow quite easily and gracefully for some time, for a while. And then we move into the next, or then we're being called to go to the next level. So that will come up again. Not the same thoughts, not the same perceptions, because we are different. But the topic, the theme will come up again. And so we get to release and let it go again and enjoy life for a period of time. And then perhaps it might come back so that we get to go to the next level. So this is a gradual, very gradual process. And we're wise to make it habitual, whatever that means for each and every single one of us, to make it a habitual practice. Just like going to the gym. Going to the gym every once in a while, it's not going to do that much in terms of building the cardiac training or the muscles or whatnot. But going to the gym on a regular and consistent basis, that's when we get to reap the fruits of it. That's when we get to harvest the good out of it. And this is exactly the same. So I love how you bring that up, that this is a practice. It is not a one and done thing. It doesn't happen overnight.
Does the ability to have this self-awareness, is where we're sort of starting and talking about here, does that help better understand everybody else's position as well? So once you start to see it within yourself and start to see your own behaviors and your own thought process and your own reactions, looking out to your family and friends and colleagues and people around you, even people in the street, like as you say, if you turn up to a gas station and somebody's being a bit irate, and understanding what that person's thinking, what that person's going through, and then at that point being able to deal with the situation like that rather than react in a poor way where you might get into an argument with that person. It's either the self-awareness to walk away when necessary, potentially, if it's in a dangerous situation, perhaps. But if there's the opportunity, I guess, to interact with a person like that and help them at that moment. What's your viewpoint on self-awareness turning into a better external awareness of others?
I love that. So everything, what we see in the world, we see it because we have it in consciousness. We are that in consciousness. Coming back to what we were talking about before, if we are seeing conflict in the world, if we are seeing drama in the world, if we are seeing lack and scarcity in the world, if we are seeing violence in the world, and I'm not saying that these are not here, but if that's all we see, then that says something about where we are in consciousness. So when we begin to cultivate this inner awareness and the subsequent unconditional love and compassion for ourselves, and compassion simply means the understanding of lack of understanding. So when we begin to become aware of our thought patterns and judgments and beliefs and all of that we're holding on to, and we begin to release and let that go, when that freedom begins to emerge within us, when we give ourselves the freedom to be who and what we are, having no judgment about it, having no opinions about it, then that freedom extends to our world around. Because what we know to be true about us, ultimately, we know to be true about everyone else. When I know that when I'm getting caught up by the ego and it's different things, that's no reflection on me. It's just me getting caught up by something that has built a nest in my mind or in my consciousness. When I know that to be true about me, then I also know that to be true about that guy at the gas station. then when he throws a tantrum, or she or they, it's not a reflection on them. It's got nothing to do with me. It's only me being in the presence of the ignorance that has caught them up. And so then we begin to be able to be loving and kind and not react, but rather respond to that condition and circumstance. Whether that be us talking to them, trying to comfort them or soothe them, or just holding the space, wishing them well, wishing for them the peace that we wish for ourselves. Or it may be that we feel that I need to distract myself from this condition. This could get ugly and I don't want to be in this ugliness. So I'm walking away. So absolutely, who we are towards ourselves absolutely reflects and determines who we are toward others.
Daniel, I'd like to switch tact just for a little bit. In your bio, you talked about moving and serving hundreds of thousands of individuals in transforming their lives. Now, in a practical sense, I'd like to understand, because this is the telling of story after all, and it's really about how does a business sort of get their messaging out? How do they, whether it's a business or an individual, it doesn't matter, but how does one actually project out into the world? And I know we've got some fabulous technology these days, and even you and I talking between Australia and Sweden is an amazing thing just in itself, something that wasn't really possible not that long ago. How does one project out their story? In a practical sense, how have you built an audience? How do you get your message out there?
Primarily, there are these two apps. There's one app that is called Insight Timer, and then there's one app called the Aura Health app. As you were speaking about technology, right? And these are very large app with, according to their own estimates, around 15 to 25 million users. And I have the privilege of being one of the teachers on these apps. And that's my primary scene, so to speak. And then obviously I have classes and I have courses and I do audio courses and I do live segments and all of that, and coaching and counseling and all of that. But technology, first and foremost, is such a beautiful way that really allows all of us to expand exponentially beyond our own reach. As for every story, when we have an intention, and because a lot of people begin by asking, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do this? In business, in their own lives, in any endeavor, how? And many of us, we stop ourselves short because we don't see the how. We can't figure the how out. So we just conclude that as I cannot figure it out, it means that it can't be done. But we're all living in a friendly universe that is continuously, that is eternally seeking to allow itself to expand, that is continuously, eternally allowing for itself to be revealed in ever greater and grander ways, in us and through you, Jules, in us and through me, in us and through every single one of us. So we all have our own unique set of gifts and talents and abilities. We all have our own way of telling the story. You have this beautiful way of telling your story. Others, every single one of us, we all have our own unique way. And as we begin to realize that this is my story to tell, this is how I want to tell my story, and this is how, and I would even go to, this is how I have to tell my story, like that inner nudge, that inner calling, that inner pulling that is saying, you have to do this. You absolutely have to do this. As we begin to move in the direction of that, the way emerges. So you could ask me, you didn't, but you could ask me, what are the steps that I've been taking? And I couldn't really tell you because I don't know the steps. I just know that as we begin to move in the direction of the good that we desire, or our heart's desire, or the dreams or the visions or intentions that we have and that we catch for our lives, the ways unfold. The path forward opens up. But we are living in a global community now that is not bound by geographical borders and man-made borders, but it's open for close to everyone. So there's YouTube, there's all these beautiful Instagram and Facebook and all these beautiful technologies that allow us to do what we want to do. And in the doing of what we really love to do, people catch on to it. People find their way into that space. And I've been very fortunate and very privileged of being beautifully guided through technology and into the space where I am now that continues to expand, obviously. I'm not sure that answers your question, but that's the answer that came.
No, it absolutely has. One thing that I preach, I guess, to anyone who would listen is the necessity in this day and age, I believe, particularly in business and for individual folks as well, anybody with a practice or anybody with something to share, that it is important to get out there. It is important to share your stories, to share your knowledge. It's almost a duty. If you've gotten to a point in your life where you've learned some stuff that you want to share, whether you're a business person selling a product or service, or whether you're an individual with a practice or a thought leader, whatever that moment in time is for you, the importance of being able to share that publicly in order to build that tribe. In your case, you've done fabulously well, hundreds of thousands of people that you've been able to touch because of the medium of being public, being out there, being visible and findable. For those who want to find you, they will find you somewhere. What has that done? So as part of encouragement, I guess, for those people who are listening and going, I know, Jules, you keep saying it, you've got to go public, you've got to tell your stories, but they're still reluctant, they're still finding the challenges behind that, or maybe aren't doing it enough, or they're not doing it as a practice, as we've spoken about, something that you need to do consistently. What has it brought to you, either in a personal sense, the joy and the love that it perhaps has brought you, or perhaps in a business sense? Maybe it's grown your business, maybe you're able to earn a good living from it and allows you to continue to share your knowledge. What has it done for you personally to be out there?
I'm not sure that I can even begin to describe what it's done on so many levels, obviously. On a personal and business level, it has allowed me to live a very beautiful life, a very simple, peaceful, and quiet life, which is in full alignment with my intentions for my life. It has allowed me to serve more people than I've ever imagined without working hard, without working long hours. Some spaces are very intense, but it's not, and I don't even consider it work because it's so enjoyable. Meeting all these people and hearing them. I mean, people write me every single day thanking me for something that they've heard me say or something that they watched me do or whatever. And just getting that love and appreciation, it is so beautiful. And I mean, one of the most rewarding things for me in my life is to be a very conscious parent. I've got 2 small children. And when I hear them speak about how they do not, and I mean, this is in the collective consciousness right now. There's so many YouTubers, there's so many young people that are earning a living in ways that like 10, 15 years ago, it wouldn't even have been possible. And no one would have ever thought of doing it, right? But now so many are doing it. But hearing them say that they want to grow up working the way I do, it's once again coming back to the freedom, not having to labor, not having to trade time for money, not having to be away. I mean, I'm here when they go to school, I'm here when they come back home from school, I'm here all day long, and I can be fully present with them. So it is such a joy, it is such a privilege. And then, of course, obviously, there's such great satisfaction in moving through those barriers of fear that we all bump into. Oh, I can't do that. What are they going to say? If I put myself in front of the camera, if I go public and say what I know, my goodness, what if? And I mean, I'm experiencing that myself from time to time. Who am I to think that whenever I launch a new product or a new service, who am I to even say these things? Who am I to even, I mean, going on a podcast like this, who am I to even be in a podcast? What do I have to offer, right? So there are a lot of things that we need to once again become aware of, witness and observe, embrace and allow, and then turn our attention away to that and allow for the growth to happen, the expansion to happen. And when we do, I mean, I vaguely remember a life when most of my life was in stagnation. I mean, I did what I did. I went to work at 8 a.m. I came back home at 5 p.m. And that was pretty much my life, right? There was not much expansion. I didn't learn anything new, really. There was no unfoldment. Now, every single day is a new adventure. Every single day is something new. And I get to continuously move into that or out of my comfort zone and into that unknown, beautiful, juicy space where the growth happens. For nothing else, that is worth it. I mean, getting ourselves out there, shattering the small and limited beliefs that we have about ourselves, about our self-worth, about our competence, our abilities, and all of that. setting ourselves free, once again, setting ourselves free to do what we feel that we want to do and just do it. And it's not about the results. It's not about the outcomes. It is not about that at all. No flower, nothing in nature cares about the end result. The lilac seed does not care how many flowers it's going to have once it's unfolded. The apple seed does not care about how many apples it's going to have or how many branches or how many leaves. It's not about that at all. As humans, we make it about that, but it is not about that ultimately. But it is about us growing, unfolding, allowing more of that which we are to be revealed. It is about us setting ourselves free to just go and do what we feel that, or what we know our hearts want to do, or wants us to do, what our souls are calling us to do. That's perhaps the greatest award of being in that space of constant expansion, constant growth and unfoldment.
Daniel, you're probably the most relaxed podcast guest I've had, but the joy and the passion and the just sense of freedom that I sense from you is infectious. So thank you so much for being part of my journey. How may the audience find out a little bit more about you?
Right. So they're more than welcome to connect with me via my website, obviously, danielroqueo.com. Daniel, as it sounds, Roqueo, ROQUEO.com. They're more than welcome to connect Insight Timer or the Aura Health app, where I do a lot of teachings and talks and meditations and all of that stuff. So those are their primary ways to connect with me.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Jules. It's been such a pleasure meeting you. So thank you.
An enlightening chat with Daniel. Right from his opening sentence, he drew me in. We have the ability to be aware of the choices we make, the beliefs we have. We are free to direct our own lives. The practice starts with awareness, the willingness to evolve, and the conviction to take action is the key. Much love. Chat soon.